Hello, I just wanted to show you a little bit about the DB30 Minibike carburetor, and this probably applies to most other carburetors. I just wanted to show you a little bit about if you take a carburetor apart, if this is your first time or you've ever taken a carburetor apart and you cleaned it, you put it back on, you're all excited and ready to go, and then it still doesn't run right. Part of the reason is that you're not finding all the jets or all the adjustment screws, all the little holes to clean. For example, on this one, here's the idle adjustment screw. And if your carburetor is pretty clean, I try to clean it maybe once a year. If you're looking at it and you think, oh, this is pretty clean, I don't need to take that out, I'll just spray around it and I'll make sure I get all these little holes sprayed out, and take this off and spray up in there, all the little holes, and it'll be ready to go. But if you undo your idle adjustment screw, or it's plastic, so be careful with it. Okay, take that out. What you notice right here is this little it holds in this little plastic, let me slide it out there, little plastic jet. And of course this jet goes in a certain way, but you can see there's a little hole through it here. And then there's, you probably can't see it too well on camera, but there's a little hole right there on the end. And so what that does is that hole lines up with, you can see inside the carburetor, there's a hole there and a hole there. And the hole that's in this jet, you just line it up. Pretty much when you line it up, there's a little piece of metal sticking out that'll kind of make the jet sit square in there. But that hole should kind of line up. So look for little things like that. Take your time. Impatience is what messes things up. If you're getting frustrated or don't understand something, stop, take a break. It's better to come back to it at another time than to mess your carburetor up and have to buy one or be without a mini bike for a while, something to ride. So if you're doing it your first time, your first machine or mini bike, biggest thing you can learn is patience. Okay, and then see, when you screw that in, it's actually holding, I don't know how well you can see it there, but it's actually holding that in. Let's see if I can bring it up there. So, and if you didn't, if your carb was clean, you thought I don't need to take that out because it's all pretty clean around here, you might miss the fact that is a little jet that needs to be cleaned. Now, another big thing that people miss is this was hidden by a little plastic cap. And anytime you see a plastic cap when you're cleaning a carburetor, that's generally a place that, a little cap you need to pop out. Once you pop them out, they're probably no good. If I remember right, the one that I popped out of here, it just didn't want to sit back in there because you kind of have to dig it out. But the little plastic caps, so the mechanics can pop them out. They're also to keep you from adjusting it because of emissions. But this is what was behind there. You can see this little adjustment needle. And that's what was sitting inside here. And I have to clean that out still, but so it was hidden by a little plastic cap. And the reason they put a plastic cap there is they don't want you adjusting that screw because that's because of the emissions. They want it to burn lean. And actually, when your carburetors, sometimes they'll run a little lean from the factory, and by adjusting that rich a little bit, it'll run better. But when you put it back in, go ahead and get a little dab of I can't remember, it's a contact cement, but it doesn't get really hard. But what you want to do is put a little maybe rubber, a little rubber in there. Like you could put silicone seal, but you got to watch it because eventually it may pop out. But you want to keep that screw from turning out. If I remember right, it comes loose if you don't have something holding it in. So, just take a little bit of rubber cement maybe. I can't remember what the kind of rubber cement I always use, but it's like a little rubber cement, and it works pretty good on almost everything. Gas doesn't really bother it that much, and just kind of fill back. Once you get it adjusted, it's on the mini bike, you got it running, everything's running perfect, it's adjusted, and you're done, then you just kind of put some of that in there, and what it does is, And you may be able to use Loctite if you can get Loctite that'll mix with, be able to withstand gas. Just something to keep that screw from falling out. I like to put a little of that rubber contact stuff in there. I believe it's contact cement, but it comes in a green tube. I like to put that in there because if that falls out, you immediately notice a dark hole, and it kind of gets your attention. If you have Loctite in there and that screw's kind of turning a little bit, I guess your bike would run funny, and maybe that's how you would know. But for me, just somehow having a big plug in there makes it feel a lot better. But you can do whatever works for you. But anyway, that's what I wanted to show you. As far as cleaning the, looking for hidden jets, I always try to blow air and carb cleaner from the inside out, from the engine side out, toward to the air filter side. And the reason is, whether it's being pulled in from the gas, from the float bowl, or pulled in from the air filter side, if a piece of dirt, for example, gets pulled into that little canal right there, the best way I think to get it out is to try blowing it back out, not trying to, I never take air or carb cleaner and blow in to where something's being sucked into, because if it's being pulled in this way and it gets stuck, it's probably better to try blowing it back out the way it came in. And I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but that's just something I found has worked really well. I don't want to force something in even farther, especially if it's a carburetor that somebody ran without an air filter or deteriorated air filter, and it's real messy and real gritty or dirty or something. But anyway, always be very careful with the springs. Make sure that you don't stretch them, because if you do, your idle it won't idle very well. And then always use your phone and take a picture, or just draw a diagram of what holes that this connects into on any of the other parts, any of your springs or rods. Make sure that you note what holes that they connect into, so you're not, because sometimes you have to pull the carburetor off to readjust the hole, and you don't want to be pulling the carburetor off, putting it back on, pulling it off, putting it back on, just to make adjustments to this because you couldn't remember where it went. All right, but I hope that gives the newbie, somebody, if this is your first carburetor that you're working on, or your first mini bike, your first machine, just remember, look for the hidden hidden plastic caps or anything that might pop out, and be very careful about popping stuff out, of course, because you don't want to ruin the carburetor. But just like this, once I unscrewed that, I realized, this looks like it might pop out. So, I very gently kind of nudged it a little, and, after you've worked on a few of them, you kind of get an idea of what should come out and what shouldn't. But anyway, as you can see here, these are just casting holes. They're not plugs. That may be a large brass plug, but I've never had to take one out, and I'm guessing that since it's brass, the mechanics don't have to take it out, so it, who knows, it could be several holes needed to be drilled in there, and they just popped one big brass plug in. But I've never taken brass plugs out. If you take it out, you may actually ruin the carb, or have to search somewhere to get a new brass plug. So don't take out the big brass plugs if you see one. If your carburetor's not working right and you've cleaned it and everything, take it to a mechanic. If you can't afford to take it to a mechanic, if you take that out and you ruin the carburetor, now you can't afford a carburetor either. So, but I've never had to take one out in all the years and all the carburetors I've messed with. I've never had to take out a brass plug or a cap. It's always been plastic. Now these are little ball bearing type plugs, and those you don't take out either. And you can see they're just like little ball bearings. Don't pop those out either. I've never had to pop one out. I'm guessing that's where they had to drill to get some, some of the chambers to meet up. But so I've never had to pop one out. So I would not recommend it. But anyway, the ones that need to come out, they'll be obvious behind plastic caps, or situations like this where you can see that that's holding it in, and that just pops out. And you can always look at a diagram too. That always helps. If you're seeing a jet, a carburetor, a diagram for your carburetor that's holding the jet, but you can't find out where that jet is, it may be behind a little, plastic cap. Okay, I should have taken this apart and showed you. It was very dirty, even though I have a fuel filter, but the Chinese fuel filters that I've been using tend to, for like, the first few months or whatever, they seem to leave a little glob of like silicone or something in the bottom. But other than that, they seem to, I guess they're filtering fine, but this was really, had a lot of corrosion in it just in 1 year. I guess the new E10 gas, the ethanol gas, and I guess it's probably not new, but anyway, it's a pain. It really makes things, it can deteriorate carburetors and leave things dirty. But I literally, the carb cleaner wouldn't take it out. WD-40 couldn't scrub it with a toothbrush to get it out. I literally had to take the little rubber grommet in there that has 4 holes in it, had such a buildup, and I just gently scraped it all away, and I had to use my, one of my screwdrivers, little screwdriver, junk screwdriver, to get the corrosion off and everything, just the built-up gunk. And that was probably a year, only a year. But I don't ride it all the time, so it does sit. But anyway, especially if you're new, get a little bucket, maybe even a couple buckets. You can see I got one here, because I keep the tools I'm working on that I need right now right in this bucket. And this one, these are the ones that I've needed or I will need. And so I'm not mixing them all together, always searching through them. I've got these right here ready to go. And, and you can see I got, I have the toothbrush. So, which I used. I don't really anticipate using it again, but who knows. Maybe when I go back to, go to put it back together, I might see a little dirt in some place on the engine and just kind of scrub it or whatever. But you can see I'm not having to rifle through, 15 tools to try to find this wrench. This wrench is just in the couple of tools that I'm needing to do the job right here. And you can see over here I've got some, cans of stuff sitting up and just other junk. But little buckets help a lot, because you aren't going to kick your screws and lose them. They're not going to roll off your bench. Your ma's not going to yell at you, because you got carburetor cleaner sprayed on her kitchen table. In fact, one of the best things you can do is work on your stuff outside, especially if you're going to be spraying stuff, because women do not like all that stuff any more than we like the smell of, hairspray and, who knows whatever kind of chemicals that they use. But anyway, mark your gaskets. This gasket is for the, this side's for the air filter. So now that I have it marked, I don't have to guess which side. Some gaskets, I just do it out of habit. Some gaskets can get very complicated, and there can be tons of holes, and and it's hard to tell. You're like flipping it over, and you're rotating it around, and trying to figure out, what holes get covered, what don't. If you can mark it, and that now there's no guessing. I don't even have to think about it. All right, I hope that helps out.